Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast, This Week in America. While pursuing a career as a professional psychotherapist, Dr. Richard Bruce has written smaller things of various likes, including songs and poems. The Last Happening is his second novel. Although the book is fiction, the characters and structures written about in the book are real. He says the reader is likely to find himself wondering about these things and adds you're encouraged to tell yourself, yes, they are real. And if you do this, you probably will be correct. A group of people centered around Blake and Lacy Freeman are recruited and trained to help during a major planetary crisis that involves an evacuation of Earth's population just before a total nuclear disaster. I think I've got your attention. Dr. Richard Bruce has been a private independent psychotherapist for the last 40 years and author of the riveting The Last Happening. And Dr. Bruce is our guest on This Week in America. Doctor, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Yeah, me too.
After that introduction there, just a couple lines on the book, and suddenly you've got me hooked, and I'm sure everybody else as well, to follow this story. Where did the story idea come from? What motivated you to write this book and the storyline?
Well, the book is basically a prophecy, but it's fiction.
Yes,
but it's built around a prophecy that's real, and the characters are made up by me, and the plot is made up, but the last happening, I do think will happen.
Now that is interesting, and the appropriate name for your novel, The Last Happening. Dr. Richard Bruce is our guest on the program. Books available at Amazon, the usual places where books are sold. So there's value to this book, you feel, other than the entertainment factor. This really gives us some insight into what possibly we'll see in our future.
Right. It's about the immediate future.
What can we apply from the book? Again, I keep going back to the very entertaining story that you tell, and it's so well written. What information do you hope we take from this? As I mentioned, if you're thinking, boy, some of those things, could they happen? Could they not happen? You're saying go ahead and figure they're going to, because chances are you'll be correct. What are some of the messages you hope we take away from reading The Last Happening?
Well, I think the main idea here is that there will be an evacuation, and the book explores the evacuation world. So in the evacuation, we will be taken from here to another world that has been prepared. And the book spends a lot of time, or a good deal of time, at that other world. So the question is, are you going to be one of those who are taken?
Now that is interesting. How do we know if we are or aren't?
We don't know, except that we can know that, generally speaking, the people who are taken are going to be the good people.
Okay. Such a fascinating concept. I'm trying to absorb all of this. The Last Happening by Dr. Richard Bruce, our guest on the program. Book available at Amazon, the usual places. As you describe our universe, and I describe briefly some of the issues that you deal with in the book, is our universe really this way?
The universe is really this way. The universe is totally populated and organized and governed. It is not cold and empty.
And you see that, and I want to talk about what you do as a psychotherapist. First of all, sort of explain that, and maybe you have because of your perception, maybe a little different insight into what's happening in our world. What exactly is a psychotherapist?
Well, a psychotherapist is a trained person to help you get better.
Okay.
I say that all human problems, except for medical problems, are psychological problems.
And I believe that because you think of, I was just thinking of myself and others in dealing with things. So much of it, we create a lot of problems in our minds, don't we?
Right. And we find solutions in our mind.
So,
Everyone is a psychotherapist. Everyone is their own psychotherapist. They just don't know how to do it very well.
well, and I guess that's one of the services you provide, giving us those tools so we can do that ourselves.
Right. Right. That's why we have professional psychotherapists.
And I would assume all of us are different, maybe fall into broad categories, but different in terms of our problems and how we need to deal with our problems.
Absolutely.
Fascinating. Dr. Richard Bruce is our guest on the program, author of the book, The Last Happening. You wrote this book as a futurist. Now, explain what that is. That's a new term probably to many people. What is a futurist?
Well, futurist is kind of my second hat or my secondary interest. But there is an organization of futurists, and futurists are those who study the future and predict what the future will be, predict what will happen in the future, particularly predict what future problems will be. Of course, in our day today, we're facing a huge future problem, and it's coming on us a lot faster than we thought, which is the climate change problem.
Yes.
And the climate change problem it's huge, and the effect it's going to have is colossal.
Do you think we're to the point where we really can't do much about that anymore? I mean, some people are fearful that we may have waited too long to try to reverse this.
I think we've definitely waited too long, and we're not going to reverse it, but there are a lot of things we can do to slow it down and prepare for how to adjust.
Is maybe the first step in recognizing this problem, and some people still have a problem recognizing it, and I guess that's the denial factor. Is that where we get ourselves in trouble, is denying there is a problem that appears so obvious it's pretty hard to deny? Is denial a big part of our problems individually and collectively?
Oh, yeah, denial. People are very much into denial. We saw an excellent example of that in the response of the congressional Republicans just in the last few days.
Yes.
I mean, they deny that there's a problem with Donald Trump. They deny that he did the things that he did do. And that's amazing, really. Amazing to me.
Well, it's amazing to me too. And I'm thinking, why don't you go back and look at the videotape and see what you're saying? You're not providing a defense. You're throwing out there talking points. And it went on all day during the final, congressional hearing before the impeachment articles are voting on. But there was no acceptance, whatever. It was total denial. And I'm sure you see that every day in the people you deal with and as to how they handle their problems. So this is a classic symptom to you.
Well, all of us do it.
Yes.
We do denial, and it's not just denial. We do versions of denial. Like, for instance, we minimize things. I think that's something that happens with the climate problem. That as we minimize it in our minds, we say, "Oh, it won't be so bad," or "We'll be able to adjust," or "We'll be able to fix it. We'll be able to take care of it tomorrow." Strange things like that. There are lots of different versions of denial, but people are big deniers.
Fascinating. This is Dr. Richard Bruce, our guest on This Week in America, talking about his book, The Last Happening, which we're talking about being a futurist and what that holds. You talk about midwayers. What exactly are midwayers?
Well, midwayers are beings who are indigenous to our planet. There's better than 10,000 of them, and they are invisible. They are called midwayers because they're sort of halfway between angels and humans.
So
but they're very. Go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead. I was just going to ask, they're amongst us now?
Say it again, please.
Yeah, they're with us now?
Oh, yes. They've been here for a long time. There are two categories of them. There are primary midwayers and secondary midwayers. Secondary midwayers they were created later, and they are closer to humans. It's easier to make them apparent. That's why the character in the book, Ryndle, who is a secondary midwayer, is able to make himself apparent by using a little small voltage, a little small electrical current.
Right. It's another reason to read the book, The Last Happening. And when you read that, you'll think, okay, is that really possible? And the answer to that would be, yes, it is. What is the bubble?
The bubble? I kind of used that idea to represent the idea that we all live in a bubble.
Okay.
We all people are naturally asleep and they wake up, and they don't ever totally wake up, but life is about waking up. And the more you wake up, the more you're able to see that you're living in a bubble.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of that, that whole concept, and it does make sense. Boy, there's so many interesting aspects to your book, The Last Happening. Dr. Richard Bruce is the author and our guest on the program. Is the universe cold and empty? We touched on that briefly before. Is that the case?
No. Well, I mean, there are areas in it that are very cold.
Yes.
But the universe is filled with stars, and it's filled with planets, many inhabited, thousands and thousands of inhabited planets like ours. Most of them are connected within their system because the inhabited planets are organized into groups and they live as systems of inhabited worlds that have a capital. And these systems of inhabited worlds make up the constellations, and they have a capital.
Right.
And the constellations, as a group, make up our local universe. And there are 700,000 local universes in the sky.
Wow. It's just what you're saying is so amazing and reflected in your book, The Last Happening by Richard Bruce. A couple minutes left in the program. You're a futurist. You're painting a picture of the future. Are you optimistic about the future, a pessimist, somewhat concerned? How do you fall as you look into the future, as you see it?
Optimistic.
Okay.
Absolutely optimistic. Not only optimistic, but eternal.
Okay.
And how could anything be eternal without being positive?
Yes. Yes.
Negative doesn't last eternally.
Well, this is
Negative is where things start, but they don't stay there. They become positive.
Boy, a lot to think about, which is I guess one of the reasons The Lost Happening is receiving such excellent reviews. It gets you to thinking and wondering what's out there, what is going to be out there. We touched on the political situation. We'll just sort of wrap up in talking about Donald Trump. Is he a godsend? How does he fit into the whole picture in the universe as you see it?
Well, everything is a godsend. God is the first source and center of all things. But if Donald Trump is a godsend, he's a negative godsend, which means that he is not someone you want to follow. Donald Trump is a seriously psychologically disordered human. And a large number of current psychiatrists got together and wrote a letter about this and signed their names. I think it was over 1,000 of them. I'm not sure.
I believe it was. I remember reading about that. Yes.
And they told us, and they're right. Donald Trump is a seriously characterologically disturbed human being, and you don't want to be following him, and you don't want to have him as your president.
This coming from a psychotherapist, so you understand the educational background of our guest on the program today. A minute or so left. The Last Happening by Richard Bruce, receiving excellent reviews. Again, getting people to be entertaining. It's a great story. They're getting them to think, could this actually happen? Could this be real? We got answers about that on the program today. What has this experience been like for you in writing this book and getting the feedback that you're getting?
Say that again, please.
Yeah, the book that you've written. What kind of what has this experience been like for you in writing the book and getting the feedback and getting people to respond?
Well, I haven't heard from a whole lot of people who have read it, but
well, we need to change
that's
that.
okay.
We need to change that because it's a story that will entertain and inform, enlighten, and again, we talked about the futuristic aspect of this. Could this happen? And we find out that much of this can happen. Dr. Bruce, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. The book is The Last Happening. It's available at Amazon, the usual places. Thank you for being with us on the program. Continued success in your writing. Do you have something you're working on now?
Can I tell you what I'm working on?
Yes.
Right now?
Yeah, please do.
It's a man who's going down the road of life, and over on the right side, about 20 or 30 yards away, is this fence that's built out of boards. And on the other side of the fence is a jungle. And there is a board missing, and he notices out of the corner of his eye this little being, this little character peeking at him through the fence. So he becomes interested in this. And the book goes on. He is able to get on the other side of the fence in the jungle, and he meets a lot of different characters and has a lot of different experiences. And
it sounds
I
like
have a lot more to write.
Well, it sounds like this is going to be a fascinating story, and would love to have you back to talk about that. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the program. Richard Bruce, Dr. Richard Bruce, our guest. The book is The Last Happening. Thank you once again for being with us.
Sure. Thanks a lot.
Information on Dr. Bruce's book you'll find by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back on today's program right after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.